Srimati Deepthi Mary Verghese, General Secretary in charge of Communications, Sri Lijo, yes, I made a note of that, Sri Lijo, who is also here, and all our friends from the media. You are all aware that one of the key factors that makes India an attractive investment destination, a shining example of a functioning democracy, is the strength of our institutions. Strength of our institutions refers to the top institutions, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But it also refers to the numerous institutions that we have set in place to regulate various dimensions of our economy. And one of the central features of what is unfolding as the continuous daily scam sequence of related to Sri Gautam Adani and his companies is that our institutions, our regulatory institutions, are not doing their job. Think about it. If any of you are individual investors, you would have seen that in the course of the last 2 weeks, ever since the Hindenburg report came out about the dubious practices used by the Adani group of companies, you have seen a mega collapse of the stock prices of Adani Enterprises and numerous other related companies. And what are the central allegations? Let me recap, and then I will take you through some of the other concerns that we have and for which purpose we from the AICC are going across to every state capital today for a series of simultaneous press conferences, because we need the truth to come out. We need our institutions to be revived. Under the Modi government, what we are seeing instead is the suppression of truth, assaults on the media. You know exactly what has happened to a media house in the last few days under the pretext of a survey. And more than anything else, the platform that is provided for the representatives of the people of India to express their views, the parliament, there you found that the very, very pertinent points and questions raised by Sri Rahul Gandhi in the Lok Sabha and Sri Mallikarjun Kharge, Congress President, in the Rajya Sabha, have been expunged in total violation of the rules book which deals with issues related to what can be expunged and what cannot. But we cannot suppress the truth for long. The truth has come out in the form of the Hindenburg report, and let me tell you what other issues are emanating from all this. Today, the Supreme Court is going to hear from the Government of India about a probe that they want to launch to set up a committee to look into the whole issue of irregularities associated with the Adani Group and its activities. Now, I mentioned to you, if you were retail investors, you would want to operate, you would want to know that your investments are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Board of India in a manner that protects you from exploitation, from scams of various kinds. SEBI is an organization that has been strengthened during various Congress governments, and as a result of that, over the last 30-40 years, you have had only the Harshad Mehta scam and the Ketan Parekh scam, and in that Ketan Parekh scam, you will recall that one of the parties that was also alleged to have been involved is the Adani Group. Right then. Now let me just take you through the sequence of events. SEBI's job is to do two things. One, it is to promote the market and to give individual Indians another opportunity to invest and and in that manner to allow private sector to raise funds from the people so that they can go ahead and expand their operations, and instead of borrowing from banks, they get investments from the public. Since they're dealing with the public's money, it is important that SEBI makes sure that it plays the other role of policeman and makes sure that whatever is stated is also absolutely true. What is stated in public to the people, to investors, is also absolutely true, and that there is no misleading and false statements going on. SEBI sat quietly and did not open its eyes, except that when we asked a question in Parliament, it said that it was investigating the Adani Group, but we have not heard anything further from them about what this investigation was about and why the report has not come in, why SEBI did not step in when it should have. When should it have stepped in? You saw the prices of the stock going up by a few thousand% over the course of 3 years. This is not something that happens on a day-to-day basis, and certainly it is not something that happens with infrastructure-related stocks. I used to be a professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. I have also come and lectured in the Indian Institute of Management in Kozhikode. And basically, I have seen that these sorts of bubbles in stock prices are a result of clear manipulation. And it is only in some stray examples of some breakthrough technology company where, where a price can go up tremendously like this. These are infrastructure stocks. These are long gestation projects. They're risky projects, and the returns from them are steady but not spectacular. So, what is called the price equity ratio should not be going at this level of hundreds of % more than what the earning stream ahead of them is going to be. So what did we find? We found that SEBI watched the prices go up and did not ask where is the money coming in from, how is this stock price being manipulated. And what the Hindenburg report tells us is that money from India went out. How does money go out? It is called over-invoicing and under-invoicing. And there are examples of Adani Group taking part in such transactions with a Dubai company run by his own brother, where, they pay inflated prices for, for whatever they're buying. In this process, money goes out. Then that money gets routed back through Mauritius-based shell companies. And those shell companies that have invested 97% of their investments are in Adani stock. The amount of stock available for trading is kept limited. And so this movement of money up and down ends up inflating the price of the stock. With this inflated price of the stock, then the company goes to the bank and says, we want loans from you, especially from the public sector banks, your money and my money, and basically pledges its shares, these inflated price shares, as the collateral for these stocks. Then it takes our money and uses that for various projects, but on the basis of security which is inflated and which is manipulated. That is the real problem. So SEBI should have looked into this issue of who is this investing, where is the money coming from. The Enforcement Directorate under the Foreign Exchange Regulation authorities should have also looked at round-tripping of money and other rackets involved in all this. And these institutions are only focused on attacking and the opponents of this government's regimes because that's the only thing that they are misused for. They are not doing their regular job. So one of the first things we need and demand is a clear, transparent, publicly accessible probe into the activities of the Adani Group, into their potential round-tripping of money, into the alleged allegations of inflating the stock price, into what the damage to the Indian banking sector would be as a result of these kinds of activities. It is not just the Indian banking sector. which has to go out there and continuously respond whenever they get a phone call from the PMO to go out there and issue a loan to Adani and his group on the basis of these highly inflated stock prices. What the Adani group has been doing, it has been cornering the strategic assets of this country. Strategic assets are in many, many domains. One domain is in the world of defense. Now, did the Adani group have any defense-related activity before Prime Minister Modi was elected in 2014? Absolutely not. And you saw that one of the first things that Prime Minister Modi did after coming to office in 2014, he started taking trips to foreign countries. And he took a trip to France. And there he took along some of his favorite industrialist friends, not just Gautam Adani, but also other friends, and made sure that instead of established players like Hindustan Aeronautics in my city of Bengaluru, instead of them getting contracts from, for example, the Rafale jet project, he ended up diverting those funds to those projects to other crony capitalists. Similar activity has taken place with the Adani Group and Israel. You can do a timeline and you will find that the Prime Minister goes to Israel and then the Adani Group gets partnership with Israeli defense companies. It gets to take over other companies based in Bangalore which produce drones, and it suddenly becomes a player in the defense establishment. It also buys a regular company that was already in the business of government contracts and monopolizes that, producing weaponry and other material, defense equipment from Israel, and it suddenly becomes a defense player. So, the nation's defense, such a strategic and crucial issue, is being outsourced to the friends, the cronies of the Prime Minister of India, whether they have any experience in this or not. I landed in Trivandrum Airport this morning, Thiruvananthapuram International Airport, and this is one of the many airports that were awarded to a company run by the Adani Group, which had no history of operating airports. How did that happen? Same thing. There were rules which said that first, no airport should be given to any company which did not already have track record in managing airports. Airports are very crucial infrastructure. That rule was changed. There were finance ministry objections saying you should not give more than 2 airports to anybody, and that was also overruled. So basically, what you find is that whenever a national strategic asset is up for private sector partnership, the rules are changed and to benefit one player, Mr. Gautam Adani and his companies. Soon, this has not yet happened, but I can predict this. There is something called the Container Corporation of India. The Container Corporation of India is one of the many companies that will be privatized by this government, and we can take a bet here today that it will go to the Adani Group. The Adani Group will monopolize all logistics in the country. Airports, ports, Container Corporation of India, which handles the movement of logistics in between. It has also put its hand into granaries for silos, for agriculture. There is no shortage of domains in which they're getting into. Now, I have no problem with a company doing a fine job and growing well, etc. What we have a problem with are 2 major factors. One, we do not want monopolization by the private sector of important strategic assets, which include ports, airports, and the Container Corporation of India that moves goods and services in between. And that is exactly where we're going. The second thing is, when these things happen, they need to happen in an open, clear manner. not in a manner which involves illegality, not in a manner that involves mafia tactics, and that is exactly what has been going on. Look at two stories that have arisen in the context of airports and ports with respect to the Adani Group. First, Mumbai Airport. If you remember, Delhi and Mumbai airports and the redevelopment were the flagship schemes that were awarded during the UPA years, and GMR Group won both was the best bidder for both of them. And we said, no, we will not allow one player to dominate both these mega airports. So we said GMR can take Delhi, and the next bidder for Bombay, GVK Group, was given that contract. And a few years later, when the government changed and the Prime Minister's best friend became interested in airports, then the GVK Group, they received a friendly visit from the Enforcement Directorate, the Income Tax Authorities, the usual agencies. And very soon after this friendly visit by the agencies, the GVK Group agreed to sell the airport to the Adani Group, something which they had not done earlier and did not make sense because they had put in a lot of the effort and should have been reaping the reward of their investment. Instead, they faced the agencies and they succumbed to pressure. A similar thing happened in the context of a private port on the east coast in the state of Andhra Pradesh, Krishnapatnam port. Again, the owner was not willing to sell. The owner was raided, or what is the term now? Surveyed. Basically, at the end of this the survey process, the owner agreed to hand over the port to Adani. In the process, he already controls 30% of India's ports and 40% of India's container traffic. So, ports, airports, there will be, privatization of the railways probably also. All of these are aimed at ensuring that one single group monopolizes all the crucial logistical assets of the country. Now, there are other issues. This issue of black money, of round-tripping, of involvement of Adani Group family members, all of this, the truth needs to come out. After all, there have been allegations before, there have been investigations. But 2014 onwards, when those investigations should have been taken to their logical conclusion, officers were told to shut those investigations. We have not seen these reports, and we need and demand that those reports come out and the officers reveal on what basis clear irregularities, clear illegalities were ignored and allowed to continue. Now, further, there's just no shortage. See, if what we're asking for is a probe into things where there are clear roles for the SEBI, for the Reserve Bank of India. If our banking system, because of the BJP's telephone banking, forcing the public sector to issue loans to these on the basis of these highly inflated stocks, then who is going to lose when those stocks lose their value, when that security becomes worthless? You and I, who have our money in the public sector banks, we will lose. And at the same time, when this was happening, when the stock prices started to collapse after the Hindenburg expose, what did we see? LIC, which had 84,000 crores worth of investment, that was the value under the... In between you saw that there were rumors enough. The power minister said, no, we don't have any shortage, etc. But soon enough, they declared there is a shortage of coal. And we will have a power crisis because the thermal power plants will not have enough coal. Then an announcement came from the government, we need to import coal to make up for the shortfall. And who did the import contract go to? I was a national runner-up on Mastermind quiz. So I'll ask you this quiz question. Who do you think got this contract? Adani. all that coal contracts that he is involved with in Australia, which has huge opposition in that country, for which the Prime Minister of India sat with the State Bank of India chairperson at that time, Arundhati Bhattacharya, and said, give my friend $1 billion, right? You remember that picture? Okay. So that same racket continues. So the Prime Minister, instead of focusing on our defense with China, a country's name that he cannot utter, he doesn't know that such a country exists. If you ask him about what is happening, he will never name China, right? Well, instead of doing that, this government's foreign policy consists of browbeating our neighbors into accepting Adani-related contracts. First example is in Bangladesh, where originally the NTPC, the National Thermal Power Corporation, was supposed to set up a power plant in Bangladesh to supply power to Bangladesh. Was given the contract at a very inflated price and was allowed to set up a thermal power plant in Godda in Jharkhand. And this thermal power plant was given SEZ recognition, which was also against the law, and the rules were changed to make that happen. So that way they don't have to pay import duty on whatever coal that they import for their own purposes. Okay. So instead of focusing on other kinds of diplomacy with Bangladesh, the diplomacy was for the focus of our foreign policy with Bangladesh was to get inflated price contracts for our best friend Gautam Adani. Similar thing happened in Sri Lanka, where once again a power project was supposed to come through, and the member in charge, in anguish, publicly stated that this project was not supposed to, ended up being treated as a government-to-government project, because even though there was a private player, Mr. Adani and his company involved, the Prime Minister of India put pressure on Mr. Rajapaksa at that time, Gotabaya Rajapaksa at that time, to give that contract to Mr. Adani. The moment this story came out, there was a lot of pressure on that gentleman, and he issued a denial saying he was very emotional, and resigned and walked away. Okay, that is how mafiosi also operate. They would put a gun to your head and say, deny it, and that's exactly what happened. Even the GVK group, after the pressure was put on them, what did they publicly say recently? Oh, no, we had no pressure. We just voluntarily sold it and walked away, right? You must understand that what is going on here is Indian companies are being browbeaten, being threatened by misusing agencies, and our foreign country neighbors are being forced to accept these sorts of contracts with these sorts of companies with their dubious practices. Now, so SEBI needs to do its job. We demand that SEBI goes out there and does a detailed public expose of what is going on. One of the innovations in governance, if you want to call that, under this government is what is called sealed cover investigations. Today also, what the government said to the Supreme Court is that today they will give a list of people for a committee in a sealed cover. What we have seen under the last few Chief Justices is that this sealed cover never gets opened for the public to understand what actually happened. Reports of investigations are kept without being revealed to the public, and this is the way we are seeing the wool being put before our eyes. We demand these probes need to be in public, and the demand that we made in Parliament was that a joint parliamentary committee needs to be set up. You will remember during the UPA years when there were multiple sessions of Parliament that were adjourned because there was an opposition demand for JPCs. JPC allows for any investigation to be conducted. It will have a majority of government members, but it will have enough opposition MPs who can also ask questions, and those questions will be on the record and their answers, unless these people find a way to expunge that also. But the basic point is That is the demand we are making. But while we are waiting for a JPC, which we will raise again in the next session, which is in about 3 weeks' time, we want these other investing agencies to do their job, the regulatory agencies like SEBI to do their job. Further, what we want to see is, all the relationships that are involved. For example, the companies that have invested in the Adani Group are run, there are two companies called Monte Rosa and Elara Capital. Monte Rosa, one of the main people in that Monte Rosa Capital is, the CEO is linked to, you will remember a gentleman called Jatin Mehta of Winsome Diamonds, who ran away from this country, right? This government did, when I was in the Rajya Sabha, they passed a law called fugitive, they were going to bring back fugitives, economic fugitives, people who cheated the country and ran away. They have not brought back a single person, right? Well, one of the key people who has escaped and gone away is a gentleman called Jatin Mehta, who is related through marriage to Mr. Vinod Advani, brother of Vinod Adani, brother of Gautam Adani, right? So all of these. The other company called Elara Capital, the former Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, his brother Joe Johnson was on the board of that. So we're seeing all these kinds of scams that are going on, and we need to see the truth. Along with this, think about the budget that was recently announced, right? Now, essentially, they were calling it Amrit Kal budget. We call it the Mitra Kal budget. It is for their friends and cronies budget. The moment Adani announces that he has set up an initiative in hydrogen power, immediately the government will introduce into the budget an announcement of our national green hydrogen mission with nearly 20,000 crores allotted to that mission. And where do you think those 20,000 crores will go? Again, we can take a bet, and in a future press conference, we can have a chat, and you will see that it will go to Adani and maybe another crony capitalist who is also in this field. Similarly, in this Mitrakal budget, they announced so many more airports, so many more water ports, water aerodromes, heliports. All of these will go to the monopoly that is coming up under Mr. Gautam Adani. So basically, what we're seeing now is in every field, you're seeing the Adani involvement, and in every field, we're not seeing market competition yielding space to a successful businessman and his entity. It is the misuse of the prime ministerial powers that is allowing this group to grow, and it is certainly a destruction of the regulatory establishment that we have fought so hard to establish to protect investors, to protect the reputation of our stock markets. Let me tell you that once all these things come out and all these regulators will be shown to have not done their job, the confidence in the country will come down. The investors' confidence in this country and its potential will come down. That is an anti-national act. Any activity which goes out there and creates a situation, results in a situation which is going to drive away investments, will keep away opportunities for us to grow, industries to grow, our children to get jobs, and there is not a worse attack on the country than this kind of result because of the brazen frauds of one group and their protectors in the Prime Minister's office. Thank you.